Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Western New York Women's Foundation Pathways to Progress speaker series on Elect Women. My name is Corey Fabian Barrett, and I'm the Director of External Affairs here at the Western New York Women's Foundation. I'm joined on the webinar this morning by our speaker, Katie Burd from WomenElect, and Mary Arathi, our Strategic Initiatives Coordinator. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we get started, we have some housekeeping notes for all of you. We'll be online talking with you all for about an hour today with time for questions at the end and throughout. The full session is also being recorded and will be freely available online afterwards if you want to watch it again or share with a friend. As you can see in your webinar sidebar, there is a handout section which has a downloadable copy of today's slide deck for you to review later if you're interested. Also in your sidebar just below handouts, you'll see that there is a chat box. We will be pausing for questions throughout the webinar, so if you have a question or want clarification on any point or want to share an experience you've had, simply type it into the chat box at any point during the presentation, and we will be able to get right back to you. We really want to make this as much of a discussion as possible, even though we're online and can't be in person today. So, as many of you know before we get started, this August marks the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which granted women the right to vote. In honor of this occasion, the Western New York Women's Foundation is going all out. We are hosting our first ever virtual What She's Made Of event this coming Monday, August 17th, and it is focused entirely on the importance of women's civic engagement and participation. We are featuring a wonderful panel of women who've run for elected office, successfully or not, and we're encouraging all attendees to lift up their voices and participate in the political process. Right now, more than ever before, our voices as women are vitally important. It is critical that we honor the sacrifice and hard work of all the passionate suffragists who came before us and vote this November and run for office, which is what we'll be talking about today. There is more information about our What She's Made Of event on our website at WNYWomen'sFoundation.org. You can still get your tickets, so don't delay there and sign up today. It is now my pleasure to introduce Katie Burd of WomenElect. Katie has been actively involved in politics since 2004 and has served on the Board of Trustees in the village of Kenmore for the past 6 years. She is the current facilitator of WomenElect, an extended in-depth training and coaching program that focuses on teaching women the unique skills required of candidates running for elected office. We will hear more about that today. She is also the treasurer of the Trailblazing Women of Western New York Monument Project, an initiative to recognize significant women of history through public monuments. Additionally, she speaks to high school girls about the importance of running for public office and has had the opportunity to speak to women from all around the world on the topic of gender equality in U.S. government and the impact a program like WomenElect could have globally. Besides her interest in politics, Katie has been on the Buffalo and Erie County Public Library Board of Trustees since 2013, was the volunteer coordinator of the Kenmore Farmers Market, and works with the Kenmore Business Association to chair their annual summer concert event series. Katie is also the mother of 3 teenagers and works as a logistics manager at Hadley Exhibits, the busiest woman in show business. We're so pleased that you can be here with us this morning, Katie, and we're so excited to hear more about how we can help women run for office through your program. So I'm going to hand over presentation power to you, and we can get going.
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. Good to be here. And good morning. Okay, so I'm not sure if I was muted, but anyway, good morning again. Thank you so much to the Western New York Women's Foundation for having me here this morning. This topic is one of the most important to me, and I get very excited when I talk about it. WomenElect has made a huge impact on my life and where I want to go with it. So I'll just give you a little bit of an overview about the program. I will try to explain as best as possible about the way we are so unique and what we offer to women and how it can be so transformative. So I will get started. WomenElect, it was started in Buffalo, New York. We like to use the tagline, "She believed she could, so she did." WomenElect is an in-depth leadership empowerment coaching program that teaches women the unique skills required to run for elective office. This program was developed about 10 years ago from our founder, Diana Chihak. And it was really founded and started from her frustration. And she talks about that a lot when she talks about why this whole thing began. And it runs through the course of the program. We talk about the frustration of qualified, articulate, committed, passionate women in our community that don't step up to run for office, that could make that political difference, that could change the landscape of their community, that just don't. They're reluctant. They don't have the confidence, and they're worried about, various different things that typically men don't necessarily worry about. And and that's valid. It is valid. And so she tried to address that. And that was the whole intention of putting the program together, was trying to get women to see themselves differently, to gain the confidence that they needed to actually step up. There is a theory out there that it takes women up to 8 times to be asked to run for office, and it only takes a man 1 before they'll say yes. So to just give you a little bit of context of how I got involved in the program, I, in about 2013, or actually 2004, I started getting politically active, as my bio says, and I worked in all different kinds of campaigns locally. I, went to other states and knocked on doors for other candidates. And then I started building up my network here in Buffalo by getting involved in different campaigns and meeting, the different players around town. And but never thought, again, I was one of those people that thought, oh, no, I'd never run for office. And then it turned out that as I got more involved in my community in Kenmore, involved in my children's PTA at their school, and became the PTA president, and got involved in other community organizations, I realized that I wanted to run for office, and there was an opportunity for me to do so. So I ran for my local village board seat and won, and it was actually life-changing in that way. So I found my voice. I found what I was committed to doing here in my village, and what I believed in, what my values were. And so then fast forward to the 2016 election and the loss of Hillary Clinton, I realized that I needed to be more in a community with women. So I was moving in that direction, and WomenElect just happened to be hosting a post-election forum at a local restaurant, and there was probably about 100 people there, and I went. I didn't know anybody. I'd never been connected with WomenElect before. And I asked the program coordinator, Diana, who at the time I didn't know, if I could speak actually at this forum. I'm not sure what compelled me to do that. And she said yes. And so I stood up there and I kind of just told my story, told my experience of being a woman, even at the lowest level of elected government, and what my experience has been, and what kind of comments have been made to me, and how I've been, kind of told to sit down and stay in place, and not speak up, or not, really, because I was a woman. I mean, really, that was said to me. Well, you're a woman. You need to be careful. You need to be a better team player. You need to be this. You need to be that. So anyway, so I thought I had something to say, and it turned out that within a month after that, Diana and I had coffee, and she asked me if I would pick up and start facilitating the Buffalo chapter of WomenElect, because she was moving it downstate and so on. So really it was an amazing opportunity for me to step up and take over the reins of that class, as scared as I was. But it really made me realize that running for office or continuing to move up the ladder wasn't exactly where I wanted to go, but working within this organization that really changed the lives of not only our community, but of other women, was what I really wanted to set my, put my energy into. And since then, I've been able to do that. So the question is why is it more important for women to run for office? That's really goes to the heart of what we're doing, and why we can, how we can convince women to not only trust each other, to support each other, but then encourage each other to step up and use that brilliance that they bring to their, whether it's their families, they're bringing that expertise to, the local, whatever, libraries, PTAs, what have you. We need them to continue to move forward. And why is it important? Well, we're going to go over some of our current numbers on the federal level and some local information too, and why it matters, why it really matters. So we're going to do a poll question now, and I think our facilitators are going to help us with that.
All right, just launched the poll there. And if everyone wants to click in there, who was the first female senator from Massachusetts who also ran for president of the United States? Gonna give it a few more seconds and then we will close it. All right, get your final votes in, people. Was it Nancy Pelosi, Hillary Clinton, Jackie Kennedy, or Elizabeth Warren? All right, I'm gonna close the poll now. And it looks like overwhelming majority of people think it is Elizabeth Warren.
Woo! All right, awesome. Well, of course, it's Elizabeth Warren. She's a champion in her own right. And I love putting this quote in here because I think it speaks so much to what we really need to talk about, which we really need to talk about. So WomenElect and this presentation, and anytime you talk to me, whether it's personally or if you know me from any other venue, and my friends can all tell you, we need to have really honest conversations about women, about supporting women, about what we've surrendered our power to government. Women have traditionally, this country was founded on a patriarchy. That's our society. Men have been making our decisions forever. And we've given up a lot. So Elizabeth Warren, in her brilliance, said this quote: "If you don't have a seat at the table, you're probably on the menu." And that's a brilliant way of telling us, saying that women have given up so much because of the decisions that have been made on our behalf with no women at the table. So that being said, we need to go over some numbers, right? So women in US government, currently, right now, we have 127 women in the US Congress out of 435 seats. So that's 26 in the Senate out of 100 and 101 in the House of Representatives out of 435. There's only 47 women of color and only 4 of them are in the Senate, with 3 just being elected in 2016. So we have 50.8% women in this country, and our representation is 23.7%. That's it. So those are pretty interesting numbers. And I believe that reflects on where we are today. When we don't have women at the table, when we don't have representation, we are left out of the conversation. We are on the menu, as Elizabeth Warren would want to say. So we find ourselves as a group, as a whole, as women, fighting and fighting for rights, fighting for our voices to be heard, fighting for justices, fighting against injustices. But why? It's because there's not enough diverse voices that are at the table making policy decisions. We can certainly take to the streets and we can make our voices heard in so many different ways, which are very important and super valid. And they do make significant changes. It makes a difference. But we need the women at the table that are making these policy decisions for us. So in addition, we have 86 women that hold statewide executive offices out of approximately 312 seats are available. 59 women hold mayoral positions out of approximately 288 in cities across the country with populations over 100,000. So again, that's at about 20.5%. We are making some strides there. We are seeing really strong, significant women leaders in bigger cities, San Francisco, Chicago, Charlotte, Atlanta, which is very encouraging and super exciting. So every little bit every little gain that we make, every little opportunity that we can see a woman step up and take big leaps and big seats is, to me, super exciting and encouraging. Let's talk about Buffalo. Currently, here in Buffalo, we've never had a female mayor or a female county executive. I mean, currently, this is something that's, this is really just not a great statistic. There's not one woman on the Buffalo County Council, and it hasn't been for a little while. That's the city's governing body, and with no women at the table, it certainly is a concern for all of us and should be continually. However, I'm sure you all know, exciting, New York State is a leader, and we are making progress. We currently have our Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul, Attorney General Tish James, and Senate and Assembly Majority Leaders. And 2 of the 4 are from Buffalo, which is very exciting, and I'm very proud of that. I think we have some progressive female leaders that are just going to continue to shine and continue to show us how to run and how to lead. So New York State's doing pretty well. We can do better, but we're doing pretty well. So, unfortunately, the U.S. is ranked at 79th in the world for women's representation in federal government, 79th. There's 78 countries that are not considered leaders of the free world that are in front of us. And women are underrepresented at all levels of government in this country. Just to give you a little quick look, the top 10 countries when it comes to women in federal government are the following. And some of these countries, I've had an opportunity to speak to international women, and I think one of the things that they have universally been surprised at is when I talk about, our percentage of women in government, they're surprised. They are shocked, actually. I've had women, look and say, like, whoa, we, came to this country. They came on a visit. Most of the women that I have been able to speak to, they come on through the State Department, and they've toured the country extensively. But one of the first stops they've had has been Buffalo. So when we talk about, women in government and have those conversations, they're like, well, we thought your democracy was so strong, and you are a leader in democracy. And of course, that's true. However, we haven't progressed enough to show that we have, equal representation in that government, in that democracy. So they're always very surprised. So anyway, so here's just a quick little bit to show you some of the progressive countries that have better representation than us. And here we are at another poll question.
All right, let's launch this one. So, who was the first Black woman elected to Congress in 1968 and the first Black woman to run for president on a major party line? Sorry, it's cut off there, but your options are Jeanette Rankin, Shirley Chisholm, Barbara Jordan, or Carol Moseley Braun.
So, and the last piece of that question is, and who is entombed at Forest Lawn in Buffalo? So this is an important little fact.
All right, I'll leave it open for a few more seconds so people can get their votes in. So it's just a miniature exercise in the importance of voting.
Right, exactly, see?
All right, so final seconds, and I'm gonna close the poll. And feeling pretty confident it's Shirley Chisholm, looks like.
Yay! Shirley. I had to include Shirley in this presentation because certainly we just had a historic announcement of Kamala Harris being presented as Joe Biden's running mate, as vice president, which really harkens back to the trailblazing efforts of Shirley Chisholm. Shirley Chisholm was a trailblazer when, she probably not even knew exactly what her legacy would be, or maybe she did. She was, and I use this quote off to the side, and that's why I included her. We know deep down that just having women at the table doesn't mean that we're going to have a perfect society. That's not the point of this conversation. And I don't think that's anything that, anyone would tell you that, including Shirley. But a diverse, reflective, and representing government is always the best government. we're not asking women to vote the same or to act the same or to, you know what I mean, be unified so much that, you know, we know that we want their differences. We want their best and brightest ideas to be brought to the table. That's why representation matters. It's not because we think that all women are going to think the same way or act the same way. In fact, we need to trust more that they're not going to, that they're going to be more, they're going to be courageous and they're going to be brave and they're going to bring their authentic voices to the table. And that's what a diverse government needs to be. And so that we can have, you know, different ways of doing things. We can look at things differently, and that women's, what we're passionate about, or what we really, our values are representative. So I think Shirley was just an excellent example of that. She blazed the trail for so many women, including Kamala Harris today. So we have to pay a little tribute to Shirley. And again, the fact that she married, her second husband was from Buffalo and is now here at Forest Lawn is just kudos, I think, to Buffalo. So what we do when we talk about, you know, women in government, we talk about them being different leaders. And again, I kind of just discussed it a little bit about how, you know, a diverse government, you know, lends itself to figuring out things differently, to working through problems differently and having more voices at the table. And women, when they are in their roles, when they are at the table, they historically do reach across the aisle better, and they have a different way of relating to other people. You know, we really have so many qualities that we try to bury within us. We have qualities of nurturing, we have qualities of, you know, raising children and having that kind of humanity. We kind of tapped a little bit more into humanity, the way I see it, and we're, so I think that when we're in government, when women are in their seats, they bring initiatives and issues forward that are near and dear to women and families and economic opportunities and the injustices of things, economic injustice, racial injustice, social programs. And for so long, I think that because our role models in government have been men, right? Our role models in government have been men. We have been inadvertently teaching women to run and act like men. And I don't think it works. This program was designed because it doesn't work. When we empower and love the pieces of women, the kindness, the humanity of women, the way that they nurture and care for others in their community, when we bring that and they're loyal to those pieces of themselves and they bring that into government, you know, they become different kinds of leaders. And that's why WomenElect is so important, to really foster those. Don't throw away all the qualities that got you to where you are today. We need to take those qualities with you and take them into government and then show other women and show that, you know, we can be women and not have to play like men and then be criticized for it. So what's been happening is that women have been taught or told that they need to act like men, but then being criticized for it. It's become a real hindrance to our progress. So over time, women bring 9% more. Yes?
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt you. It looks like we're having some trouble with the screen sharing.
Okay.
It's just not going away. So I'm just going to take back the screen for a second and give it back to you. And hopefully
Sure.
that'll problem. All right. Here we go. Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Good. Okay. So anyway, you know, even a recent Harvard study shows that diverse countries led by women had a higher GDP growth. So if we're talking about dollars and cents, you know, women at the table, women that are leading countries are bringing in, you know, their GDP growth is the same. So some There's even articles that have been recently published that, you know, there is proof and there is data that shows that countries that are being currently led by women are finding their people are faring better through COVID-19 pandemic. And the reason for that is basically what I was just talking about. Women who are, you know, leading these efforts bring in other voices. We are more open to hearing from other voices, from other entities, from other, you know, top officials. We're interested in hearing some different ideas. So what's happening is when we're more flexible, when we have a leadership that's more flexible and more willing to, you know, see a bigger picture, to see a bigger vision. And I think women tap into that a little bit easier. We're seeing some real benefits, and we're seeing it in these countries that are dealing with the pandemic. And again, you know, we're talking about women that, you know, work differently with reaching across the aisle and, you know, not getting bogged down in politics. Certainly there is that. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen, but it just means that women have a different set of tools that they utilize to get things done. Again, I like to throw in some of these quotes and then kind of just highlight some of the women that are out there and that have are making a difference every day. So Mikey Sherrill from New Jersey, this quote says, "People sometimes ask how I can run for Congress when I have 4 children. I tell them I have 4 children, how can I not?" She was just elected in 2018. She's a former Navy pilot, lawyer, and a mother of 4. So I had a friend of mine I had a conversation with the other day, and you know, she came up with this quote, "Motherhood is political." And you know, there really isn't anything that's not on the table these days, and it's true. Motherhood is political. So again, we talk about those challenges that, you know, women have with, you know, raising a family and being, you know, being a mother, having all these different roles. But yet, you know, how can we ignore politics? Because the politics and the policies that are happening, that are made, the decisions that are being made are going to affect, you know, not only ourselves, but our children and future generations. So how can we turn our back on that? We can't. And that's been proven. And I believe, again, state of the world we are in today. So this gets me to where we are in the program of WomenElect. So WomenElect, like I said, was founded here in Buffalo. We have chapters in Rochester, but we have a unique approach to giving women the tools they need to say yes to running. So because we're so reluctant to say that we're qualified, to say that we're, you know, experienced enough, to say that, you know, we have enough time, you know, there's a lot of reasons we put up in front of ourselves to say that we can't do it. But WomenElect is here to tell you that you can. And the way it was designed was to be an extended, in-depth. So it takes about 4 months to go through the program. We go once a week for about 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours a night. We try to keep it down because I know it's time, but we really, the women, that when we get into the class, there's so much to talk about that it really does, time does fly. But we are an independent, in-depth training coaching process that focuses really on expanding networks, teaching the skills, talking about fundraising, talking about, you know, the confidence that it takes for women to really see it and use it. And we do a lot of different really unique ways of bringing that out in each woman. We have some really interesting strategies, and they don't even really know how it's all working and how it's bringing out the best in them, but it's really brilliant the way it was designed. And I have to always give kudos to Diana for the way she designed this program, because it's nothing like anything I've ever taken part in, and it's nothing like any other quote unquote campaign schools that are around the country. There are a lot of programs that really help women run for office. We are not unique in that aspect, but we are unique in a couple of different ways. And I'm going to explain that to you. Again, the fact that it's an in-depth 4-month program. It takes time, and our classes are small because of that, because there's a lot of information that we go through. But what happens is WomenElect is held in the communities that the women will eventually run in. So a lot of the other campaign type schools or campaign type organizations bring women across the state for like a weekend or like an extended kind of time where they condense a lot of information into, small different classes. But they're bringing women in from all over the state. Let's say one would be held in Albany. They would bring everyone in the state over to Albany for a weekend or for, a time period and kind of cram in a lot of things that they need to do. Then they bring it back to their communities and try to figure it out. What we do is we actually, and this program is set up to can go in any city, any community, and ultimately any country. Because what we do is we set up the class in the cities and in the communities that these people, the women will run in, so that they can meet and know the landscape within where they live. So they don't have to figure that piece out. So that makes it so much easier for them to say, okay, well, through this program, I'm meeting other women that are going to be doing this. I'm meeting other women that could help me run once I decide to do so. I'm meeting the players around my community that can help me when I decide to run. So it's like this really invested program into the community, which really gains, adds to the confidence piece that they're not on their own. So, and it was designed by a woman. It's facilitated by women. It's specifically made for women in an effort to advance our community. So, the coordinators are all women. And then when we bring in, different parts of the community, they're women leaders that are coming in to the class, and I'll explain how that works. And again, so that we can see, and we have role models to show them what can be done and who you need to talk to, and they're all women. They've all been through a similar, situation. So it's really helpful, beneficial. So say yes to WomenElect. This is what we need to get, the messages. And so what I'm going to do here is kind of go through what we talk about each week in the class. So when you sign up for WomenElect, it's usually a pretty small class size because, again, it's very personal, it gets very involved, and we share a lot of things. So there's a confidence piece, or a confidentiality piece, excuse me, that we have to all agree on once we get into those four walls of that classroom. And nothing is, so that women feel confident that they can share their innermost fears and desires and goals without feeling that they're going to be talked about outside of the wall, outside of the class. So it's really important. And we start out with Grit and Guts. We introduce a book called Grit. It's by Angela Duckworth. There is a grit scale that if you go to angeladuckworth.com, you can take for yourself. We get the women to take that in the very first class so they can gauge their own grit, how much it takes, what their level of intensity is, I guess. Intensity is kind of a good word. How passionate they are, how much they stick to a project, and if they, how dedicated they are. So it's interesting, and it's a fun little exercise to get everybody kind of talking in the beginning. And then we talk about guts, and we talk about values, and we ask women to write down 4 values. From the beginning of the class all the way to the end, we ask women to journal their experience, journal their thoughts. They do homework after each class. We have homework set up for them to be prepared for the next class. And in that first class, we talk about guts, we talk about values, so that we can frame their conversations moving through the program through their value set, so that they can start to identify with their values. So once they start to identify with their values, they can start framing their messages, they can start talking in a more authentic way, they can start looking at what their values, how their values line up to possibly what office they may run for. If they're worried about environmental issues, education issues, that helps them decide, where they should put their time and talent, maybe running for a school board or, running on a state level if it's an environmental thing. So that kind of just helps them outline of what they want to do. The second piece of this, the story itself, the next week, can't be talked about enough. I think this is actually one of the secret ingredients to the program that sets itself apart. The The story itself is one of the most valuable tools I personally have gone through, and I see the transformation when the women go through it too. What basically the story itself is when we start asking each candidate in the class to look back on their life, look back on something that would be considered a conflict, and then look at what their choice was, what choice they took, what action they took to address that conflict, and then what the outcome was. So it's not a story about their whole life. It's a snapshot of possibly something that may have thrown them for a loop, or something that they made a strong decision on. But it's always a conflict, a choice, and an outcome. And through that exercise, which can be very in-depth, we spend at least 2 weeks on this usually, because we ask the women to identify those, then bring them to the class and start sharing them. And through the sharing and through the collaborative kind of storytelling about ourselves, we start to change the way we talk, change the way we think about ourselves, change the way, like, wow, okay, yeah, there was that conflict, and I did that, and it worked out, or it didn't work out, or what I learned for. So it's very important. It's, again, the cornerstone of the program. We move on to how to ask for support. We ask women have a problem with asking for money, but in elections and campaigns, we need to have that. So we really do a deep dive in how to ask for support, how to ask for money. And then we talk about image in the next week. We talk about image, we talk about social media image, we talk about branding, we talk about, the things that women get criticized for, rightly or not, of course, and what we get, criticized for. So we talk about image. We have those conversations about that. We go on to media and messaging. Media and messaging for 3 weeks. This is really intense, and we bring in people in the community for each of these classes to actually teach this stuff. So each week, I'm the facilitator, but we bring in professionals in that particular in that topic. So messaging and media, we would bring in, a camera crew. We're going to bring in a reporter, a former reporter, to ask questions. You can see the picture in the bottom right. We actually do mock interviews to try to get the women to know what it feels like to be talking on in a camera by a reporter. We try to get them to stay on their message, to frame their value or their views on what they want to do when they get in office, and we try to mess them up. And it's actually really it's really powerful. Actually, it's a really interesting exercise. The next is Art of Politics. We bring in a seasoned female elected official or a former elected official to talk really frankly about some of the things that she experienced in her run and during her campaign, who she leaned on, where she got stung, those types of things. And those, the next one we do third parties and fusion voting. Here in New York State, that's a big part of campaigns, it's a big part of endorsements, and it's something that it's important to know. Then we go into unions. We bring in union leaders and community-based organizational leaders and talk about how to get endorsements, who you need to meet, what parties, fundraisers, and events you need to attend. And we kind of begin to build their network of who they, once they leave our class, of who they can count on, who they can call when they do decide to run, and what they need to do. So it really is beneficial for them to be introduced to these people. And then we talk about how to evaluate an office. We show what that seat, how many voters in that area, how many there are, how it breaks down, how the last person that ran for that seat, how many votes they had to get to run, to win, how many doors you need to knock on, those types of things. We evaluate that office. By this time, the women usually have an idea. Some in my class have actually been running when they've taken my class, and then some have moved on and said, okay, within the next 3 to 5 years, I want to run for whatever. So we have them at least have an idea so that they can each individually look at one office that they think they may run for, so that they can get a real-time look at what that might look like. We talk about kitchen cabinets. Kitchen cabinets is a fun little way of, especially for women, to talk about who's going to help us. who's going to help like our inner circle, who's going to be, you know, our go-to people that are going to help us with our kids, you know, help with babysitting, you know, bring over meals, possibly pick our kids up from school, whatever those are, those key people that are really going to help us support us emotionally, probably the most. Because we, you know, emotionally is a big deal for women. Being emotional is part of what got us to this point, and it's important to continue to be emotional in a really great way and not continue to suppress those emotions. Emotions are good. Emotions are powerful, and emotions we can count on. And I think that when we have people that can identify and support our emotions and tell us, instead of saying, you know, don't be that way, it really makes our voices stronger. And then we bring in major parties so that they know who the players are, again, in the major parties, because they're going to eventually need to make their pitch for what office they want to run for, and they want to know, you know, who they're going to see and what the parties are looking for in candidates. So it's a real give and take. It's a real open dialogue. And then we leave the women with action plans, and so that they have an exact idea that they can put on their refrigerator or wherever it is that they can see, and they can say, this is the steps I need to take, these are the people that I need to talk to, these are the events I need to go to, whatever it is, these are the doors I need to knock on, whatever it is, they're leaving with an action plan when they leave our program. Again, just another little quote from the first woman and first African-American woman to represent the state of Delaware in the U.S. Congress, trailblazer, elected in 2016, Lisa Blount Rochester. And spreading the message. WomenElect, like I said, currently has in Buffalo and Rochester. The founder, Diana Chihak, has stepped down as of May. She has actually turned the program over to me, which is actually really exciting. I didn't necessarily see that coming, but I'm really excited about looking for different ways of expanding the program, because this program, again, can be placed in any country, any city, any state. Because we bring in the players in that particular community, we can move this program all over. And that's really my vision for the program. And we are currently seeking partnerships. I am in the process of turning it over into a non-for-profit so that we can tap into different resources, so we have some different kinds of funding so that we can expand. So, but when women run, everyone wins. And just a quick synopsis of where WomenElect is in the community and in the world. Here's some pictures that I want to share of some women that have run and currently running. Sharon Sattler LeBlanc is running for state assembly in Rochester. She's an amazing candidate who graduated from the Rochester class a couple years ago. On the right, we have some Niagara County women that ran for the Niagara County legislature last year. So we have a reach. Even though we held our classes in Erie County here, we have had women from different counties come in, and we do try to incorporate whatever county they're coming from. You know, we make it personal and bring in those county officials too. So here's some of our wins. We have Michelle Roman. She's the mayor, currently the mayor of Lockport. She was actually in the first class that I was facilitating. And we have Amy Kobler, who took the class from me last year and was actually running for that seat while she was in my class. So it was really interesting to see the program in real time. It was really fun. So she was learning things in the class and then going out and using those tools, using that elevator pitch and her story of self to really identify and connect with voters. It was fun to watch. Some other things that WomenElect have taken part in, you know, we do forums, we do a lot of community things. I've had the privilege of talking to high school girls about, you know, running for office. I've worked with the Erie County Commission on the Status of Women, and I've worked with the program First Amendment, First Vote, which again targets high school girls. This particular event at the History Museum was chaired by Kathy Hochul, talking about women in elected office last year. This is some of my international work. Again, there's been 2 delegations from different parts of the world that have come through Buffalo in 2019. Back in May of 2019, there was a group of women from Latin America that came through, and WomenElect I was asked to present this program to them. And again, this is where I really learned a lot about, how universally confidence is the part that we all lack. We all, as a general rule, women lack the confidence. And when speaking with these ladies from all over the world, they resonated so much with that first half of the program that really cultivates the confidence. Because when women want to drive social change, we need to be at the table. And they all 100% lit up when they understood that concept. And they all, to a person, said they needed a program like this in their countries. But they're all leaders in their own right. So these were the best and the brightest from some of their countries, from Guatemala to Brazil to Colombia. To the top picture is from Northern Africa and Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Chad, Lebanon, Morocco, Kuwait. It was a fascinating and amazing experience for me to be in the room with all these amazing women. Here's just some pictures of things we do. I have been, to the convention days reenactments. We march in parades for our candidates once they go to run. I've met different, female leaders. The picture at the top is one of my favorites because I was getting a book signed by Hillary Clinton after the election, a year or so after. And she really wasn't talking to anybody. She's just kind of signing books. But when I talked to her about WomenElect, she stood up, or she looked up at me and gave me that face. And her hand, what she said to me was, keep going, keep empowering women to run for office. And that picture was surprisingly taken for me, and it's everything to me. Catherine Cortez Maestro, she's the first woman elected to represent Nevada in the U.S. Senate. Again, a trailblazer in her own right, first Latina. You put this in here because Rosa Parks really sums it up, and it's what WomenElect does. It diminishes the fear. We're afraid. We're afraid to step up. We're afraid to step out. We're afraid to use our voices because we just don't know what's going to happen. But when we know what's going to happen, when WomenElect teaches you what's going to happen, the fear goes away and we can move forward with more confidence, and we can do it. And this quote, I think, is perfect. So why I added it to the program. Some of the books that we use, there's an amazing workbook that we're going to start using. It's called Represent. It was just published a few months ago, and it's a workbook. It's almost very similar to the curriculum that we use here, but women can use it after they leave our classroom and be reminded of everything we talked about, because this book just all of a sudden came over in front of me, and I was amazed when I read it because it really embodies the WomenElect program, and it's something that they can take with them and then continue to work through and be reminded of all the amazing women that have come before us and why we need to continue. The other book on the right is Somebody's Gotta Do It. This woman that I met who wrote this ran for a county seat in Otsego County, which is where Cooperstown is. And then she wrote an amazing, funny, candid book about it. And it's really worth reading. And then what women are saying about WomenElect, just a few quotes of some of our candidates, where they are and what WomenElect means to them, and what it did for them, and how they've been successful in running a campaign, whether they've won or lost or not, but what the tools that they learned here, really how they carried it forward. Additional projects that WomenElect is involved in, myself personally, is the Trailblazing Women of Western New York. It's the Monument Project. I'm not sure if you've heard of it or not, but it's been around for a couple of years. The Erie County Commission on the Status of Women initiated this project. Eventually, we are going to be placing 3 statues, full-size statues, on the front lawn of the Central Library downtown of Mary Talbert, Louise Bethune, and Geraldine Green, who's a Native American. And we're going to be making an announcement of some oral history project that we're going to be doing along the lines of this Trailblazing Monument project in the next few weeks. But it's very near and dear to my heart. And to the women that are really trying to put this together. So I thought I'd add that at the end. And that's me. So again, I'm in the process of taking over this program. I would love to work with anyone that's interested in helping me. Again, I believe in this mission so much. It's changed everything about my life. I believe it's personally the most important work that I can be doing for the greater political good and for the greater good of all women. And so feel free to contact me, feel free to get involved. If you know someone that may want to take the class, I know during COVID right now, our Rochester class is doing it online via Zoom. It's a little different, but certainly it's an option. I have not launched a Buffalo class on Zoom yet, but we may in the near future. So I can tell you what WomenElect has done for me. And if anyone's interested in talking to me further about it, I would love and welcome anyone that wants to get involved or contact me. So I think that's it. And I'll open it up to questions. I know I talked a lot, but I hope that I would love to hear what anyone has to say or questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Katie. Our first question is, what is the top reason you find women are saying no to running, and how do you overcome this?
It's okay. So the top reason, it comes right down to confidence. It comes down to, and when we do a lot of one-on-one coaching too, part of the program is that each woman gets a one-on-one session with the facilitator. And so what we're finding is that, women think that they're not qualified. They're not qualified. They could be the top of their game in their field, but they still think they're not qualified to run for office because maybe they just don't know everything about the topic, or maybe they feel like, again, they're just feeling so insecure about their own knowledge that they think they can't do it. So we're missing a huge portion of brilliance when women are not believing in their own abilities. So it really does. It's confidence, and that's something that universally I've found in talking to women from everywhere. So that's what we need to change, and that's what I think WomenElect addresses so well.
Thank you so much. Our next question is, if I'm interested in running, what are some factors I should consider first?
Yeah, that's great. First of all, what you should do is definitely talk to your family, talk to your closest. You can put your kitchen cabinet, together in your own little personal way, and kind of bounce it off, your closest friends, your closest people, and start, thinking about, okay, well, what office would that be, and how would I want to shape that office, and what would I be able to bring to that table, and what does my voice sound like if I'm sitting there? Like, just really kind of visualize it, and then start talking about it, start actually putting language to it. And then reach out to someone like me or someone else that might be politically active and say, hey, what do you think? And and then just start to build a network. I love talking to women about, even if they've never run, I love talking to women about it. I love building them up to think and know that they can. It's one of my favorite things about it. So I certainly open myself up to that, but start really talking about it, visualizing it, thinking about it, and then get in touch with a program like WomenElect, or another type of networking organization that might lead to where you want to go.
That's wonderful. Our next question along those lines is, what might oh, I'm sorry, I was misreading it. What are some of the WomenElect success stories?
So we have had some, Diana can certainly speak a little bit longer to that because she's been in the program longer. Personally, success stories can be all kinds of things. So I personally, the way when I talk to the women that are in my class, I don't talk about the ultimate victory. It's about the journey. It's about the transformation that you personally can go through. Because even if you don't win your election, or if you end up not even running for office, the value and the connection to yourself that you learn through this class will carry you far farther than any immediate win. Certainly, we have some success. We have women in office. We have women that have run historic campaigns downstate, that have only been the first African American to run for a county seat. Diana has that story of one of her Rochester, or I think we had a class in Auburn, that had a woman, there was never a woman of color that ran in that county ever. But she was a WomenElect graduate. So there's a lot of different stories, and success is really what how you define it. And each individual woman goes through this and has their own successes in so many different ways.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Our next question is, how would you recommend parents begin to have these important conversations with their children, or students or teachers with their students?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's a really great question. And I think, like I said, going back to that, motherhood is political, I think that what we need to do is start having honest conversations and not critical conversations. So what I think the narrative of our politics these days is critical, criticizing, critical, negative. So what I do with my kids, and when I talk to other high school kids or on any level, we talk about positive. We talk about what's good that's happening, what good can come of something that we can champion or celebrate. And I think that for littler kids and for even high school kids, we need to give them that hope, that dream, that vision. And I believe that there's a huge wave, a feminine wave that's happening. We're seeing it across the country. We're seeing it even in this political cycle. We can all sit and be critical of where we are today. Certainly, there's lots of reasons to be critical, but there's 100,000 different ways of being super excited and inspired and hopeful. And that's what I think we need to pass on to our kids, is that piece. And from there, anything's possible. Again, that's how I view things. I believe that positive things can just result in more positive things. And when we empower that in our kids, in our friends, in our neighbors, in our, other women, anything's possible. So.
Thank you so much for that. And this last question kind of builds off of that. What are some resources that you would recommend for people either interested in running or are interested in encouraging others to do so?
So that's a really great idea, or great question, again, because this program not only just gets women to run, but what we also do is we encourage the candidates that take the class to get involved in other campaigns. So that's the other piece that maybe I didn't mention, but this question highlights that, is that if you are thinking of running, or if you just want to support other women that are running or other candidates, we don't say that you have to just support a woman candidate. If there's not a woman candidate that you believe in that's currently, in your community that's running, say it's, but get involved, call that person or call their campaign. Hey, how can I step up? How can I help you? What can I do? Those types of things. How I got involved, I was just a quick, back in 2004, I was a stay-at-home mom. I just had my second daughter. She was 6 months old, and I was listening to the radio, and I was kind of frustrated or antsy about the election. It was early September, about the federal election, presidential election, and the radio said, oh, if you don't live in a swing state, why don't you drive to one? You might be able to help them. And I got home that day, and I called Erie, Pennsylvania, and I asked them if I could come down and canvass for the presidential candidate in Erie. I had no idea. I knew nobody. I started knocking on doors of people, in a different community, a different town. And it was the best day ever. It was really something that, motivated me to continue. So it can be just those little things, those tiny little things that might, calling a campaign, getting to work on one, finding someone that's running for office, getting in touch with, someone from WomenElect, someone that's run, find a friend that might know a friend that might have run, read the books. The Represent book is outstanding. The Somebody's Gotta Do It book is outstanding. There's a lot of different books out there. There's podcasts now, that are out there, that are other strong leaders, women leaders that are writing, that are talking about stuff like this.
Thank you so much for your incredibly passionate and informative presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Corey to close this out.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Those are great questions. And thank you, Katie. I hope that every single woman who joined us this morning gives running for office some serious consideration after hearing more about WomenElect's program, and they start having those conversations with their loved ones. And thank you all who have joined us online here today. We hope you enjoyed the presentation. You can follow the Western New York Women's Foundation and WomenElect, it should be noted, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn for all the latest updates. As another reminder, our annual What She's Made of event, also focused on this important issue of women's civic participation and engagement, is happening this Monday, August 17th, and you can still get your tickets on our website at WNYWomen'sFoundation.org. Again, thank you so much to Katie and to Mary for moderating our Q&A today, and thanks everyone for being online with us. Be safe and be well.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. I had a great time. Thank you.